it sounds like a lot of people have this idea that if you're going to weightlift, then that just has to mean you're going to be roided up and looking like Arnold or something, some crazy physique. When in reality, I mean, in my experience, that's not the case. You won't get too big. That's
It's not possible.
that one's ridiculous. Without steroids, but that you probably shouldn't be taking those to begin with. And then
I've been working out for 14 years, and I'm just happy with where I'm at. And that's the thing. It's like strength, muscle size, it takes a certain level of consistency. And the extremes that people see is because these people have been on such an intense regimen for such a long time to get to that point.
Yeah.
The people that are looking at it for health purposes do it completely different. It's a different time frame that they do. They're still able to enjoy their life. And I've heard a couple different things on that side where it's like, I don't want to be one of those people that's constantly in the gym just to meet my goals. It's like, in order to meet your goals, maybe you just need 3 times at 45 minutes for resistance training to hit your goal.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, there's a lot of personalization, I think, that needs to go into strength training, because I do talk about this on my exercise episode. It's hard to talk about general advice because depending on where you're at, what your goals are, it's going to be different. If you do want to be a bodybuilder, you're going to need to be in the gym like 2 or 3 hours a day, serious cut bulk cycles. But if you just want to, be able to lift some heavy boxes for your family or pick up your grandkids, that's a whole different. You don't have to be quite as intense.
And we deal with a lot of people that have pain. And a lot of people that have pain have been told to not exercise or to stop doing certain things. It's like, well, actually, one of the best things that you can do is to continue moving and to load the tissue. If you don't load the tissue, it's not going to get back to normal. So you get people that have like 5, 10, 15-year-old chronic pain conditions musculoskeletally because they haven't reloaded the tissue how it's supposed to be loaded. And their body's compensated around it. And resistance training is one of the things that can correct it.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that, because I've definitely come across a lot of research that indicates that weightlifting is super beneficial for chronic pain. I mean, I've had back pain for 6 years, and lifting has definitely helped with it. But on like the physiological... Sorry, you cut out for a second there. On the physiological and mechanical side, like what's actually going on and like what's the research to back it?
So the level of depth that I'm able to go into is completely different than a physical therapist. I will say that. But I want you to think about the different components of a muscle, right? One, you have the different types of collagen fibers that go through it. So our fascia, which I want you to think like a web that overlays the muscle tissue that connects to more than just that individual muscle. So the fascia that connects from the top of our foot that goes up the tibialis anterior could be the same fascia that crosses the knee into the quad. Just an example. That type of fascia is the same kind of connective tissue that makes up tendons and ligaments. So one type of pain that can happen, let's say from an impact, if you get hit really hard and it disorganizes this fascia, so that webbing that's nice and neat is now kind of discombobulated a little bit. Those can also be known as trigger points if those are formed. But getting that to be worked out needs to have some type of load to reorganize the tissue. So you could do stuff like eccentric loading to where you're breaking down muscle tissue and fascial tissue so that it has a chance to reheal in a more organized fashion. So that's one thing. Another thing is neuromuscular. So we have these little components inside of the muscle called muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organs in the tendon. Muscle spindles react to extreme stretch. So the faster you stretch a muscle, the more it will react. That's why we have something called the stretch shorten cycle. This is just textbook. If, let's say, a muscle overstretches faster than what it's capable, then it will want to react and that's where we typically see muscle pulls, right? Yeah. This muscle will react and it will want to shorten, and for some people it might become more of a chronic issue if they become to favor that leg and shift onto another side. If you overload a tissue, like let's say too much weight, the Golgi tendon organ is supposed to say, hey, I'm not able to handle this load, and it will turn off the neurological component to that muscle so that you bail or fail to lift that thing. Like if you go to pick up a car, but you're not in this high stress environment, your body's going to be like, no, I'm not going to do this. You're going to tear everything. So the Golgi tendon organ decreases the stimulus that muscle's able to get. Now there's other extremes where, let's say you go into a landing from a really high box. You're not used to it. You've done like maybe 15, 20 inch box drops landing on the ground, but you're playing around with some friends, you're goofing off in the gym, whatever that looks like, and you jump onto a 40-inch box and you go to jump off of it. Let's say your patellar tendon is unable to handle that load, and you do this because you're just messing around. There's no adrenaline into it, so it's not ready to take that kind of reaction. When you land, it tries to take all of that load. So you can tear a ligament or a tendon or muscle tissue if it's overloaded. So it breaks the stimulus of the Golgi tendon organ. When that happens, it takes a very long time to rehab. And the situation is kind of the same. You have to get the muscle spindle to understand, yes, I can re-lengthen to the position I was again. For the Golgi tendon organ, it's like, yes, I can reload this tissue. You don't have to protect it anymore. So it's all about reprogramming how the nervous system is able to integrate into that muscle, tendon, ligament.